But to return to the topic of most of your talk this morning, I'm wondering a little bit myself how Venezuela is going to turn out. That's talking about the future. What we do know is that in Syria, for example, as elsewhere, the U.S. has gone in and tried to bribe the military generals in order to get them to turn against their leader, Assad, or in this case, in Venezuela, Maduro. They've already tried that strategy. One's trying to bribe Maduro's pilot into rendering him to authorities. And it seems to me that that's going to be a key tactic that they adopt, in addition to decapitation strikes against infrastructure and, of course, the leadership itself, if they can. What do you see as the chances of success for this in Venezuela?
I don't see any chance for success, because the idea of success has been defined as sort of this quote unquote democratic transition, a clean democratic transition. If the Trump Incorporated succeeds, the environment in Venezuela could be so destabilized that a figure like Maria Corina Machado could not even hand over the country's resources and contracts for rebuilding and contracts for building oil infrastructure so cleanly, because a civil war would erupt. And Maria Corina Machado, while promising to basically sell out her country to a cartel of pro-Trump businessmen or Trump-aligned businessmen, has also promised to carry out massive purges. She's been a little bit more subtle about that, but she is Pinochet in a skirt and would have to carry out the incredibly bloody purges of Chavistas across Venezuela and wipe out all iterations of Chavismo. It would lead to a civil war. It would lead to an armed conflict inside the country that would spread into Colombia, where FARC has aligned with Venezuela's government, and it would bleed across the region. It could even bleed into Brazil, where Lula da Silva's government has been targeted by the Trump administration. And then it would lead to a massive migration wave like never before, putting new pressure on the U.S.-Mexico border, as well as all the states along the way, from Central America to Mexico. I mean, we're talking about a catastrophe if they succeed. And I don't think the Venezuelan public has an appetite for this level of destabilization. I don't know what the U.S. plan is, but it appears that the plan leaked, or some version of the plan leaked to the Miami Herald 2 days ago. It called for beginning with an attack on Venezuelan military bases, which they would, in their neocon fantasy world, believe would trigger this popular rebellion. And then Marco Rubio has to come out and denounce the plan, denounce the reporting, claiming that fake sources provided false information to the Miami Herald. And this was hours after Donald Trump said he had no plans to attack Venezuela in the immediate future. And what I think happened is that someone actually leaked the plans, either within the Pentagon, who is opposed to this war because they understand how crazy it is, what an exercise in arson it would be, or that Marco Rubio was the source and that Trump berated him for exposing the real plan. So they're already in disarray within the Trump administration. And I don't know if they know the way forward, which is possibly why Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are now threatening to attack Nigeria for supposed Islamist attacks on Christians. And they've said, if Nigeria can't stop these attacks on innocent Christians, then we're going to bring the military in there. So they're suddenly pivoting from Venezuela to Nigeria. So I don't think they actually know what they're doing. And I do think there's a very strong possibility of a rally around the flag scenario in Venezuela if they carry out these strikes on military bases or decapitation strikes, and it will be discrediting. Meanwhile, the U.S. has restarted, or is attempting to restart, negotiations with Iran, because they're also bogged down in the Indo-Pacific where there's a deployment of the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier, a kind of show of force against China. And there isn't, the US doesn't have the ability to threaten Iran at this time. The US is also expending enormous amounts of ammunition of 155 millimeter howitzer shells in Ukraine, and it can't keep up with Russia's industrial production, which is why Russian troops are now taking over the city of Pokrovsk, which is a key transportation hub, and the Ukrainian military is losing more territory. The US cannot supply Taiwan with enough THAAD anti-aircraft, anti-missile batteries because 1/3 of the THAAD stocks that the US possessed, its entire stockpile, was spent by Israel, spent to defend Israel in 12 days last June against Iran. So I think the US military is in a crisis, the US empire is in a crisis, and the Trump administration is using a series of maximalist, increasingly bonkers band-aid solutions to paper over the real problem. And I think the only way out of this is to negotiate with Venezuela. And it would be a win-win scenario that would bring down energy prices for the American public. But you have ideological radicals like Marco Rubio, the director of the Gusano Industrial Complex, in charge. And if this fails, Rubio is in big political trouble. This is someone who's vying to be the next Republican nominee to succeed Donald Trump, and J.D. Vance is his key competitor, and they're both in the administration. So I think this is something to really watch to see who will chart the future of the party after Donald Trump. And Rubio is banking his entire legacy on this. And it could be decided that the course of this war or conflict could be decided in the next 24 hours. I mean, it could, something feels imminent, which is why I dedicated so much of my comments today to Venezuela.